All right. Welcome to our IRTA conversation today. Our webinar series for education is continuing on. Today, we're talking about long-term care, everything that you need to know, kind of the soup to nuts and what it is, how it works, some pitfalls, things like that we want to help you out with. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. Just a real quick housekeeping before I turn it over to Nathan Mihelich, your Director of Membership and Marketing. All participants are in a listen-only mode, and what that means is that if you've got questions, drop those in the Q&A feature up there. We can monitor those chat as we go along. If we can stop something specific to what your situation is, we may respond back to you in writing. If not, we may just stop, and if it pertains to everyone, we'll talk about that as well. We do record every one of these sessions, and we put those out on the IRTA website so that you can follow later on. If you want to share this conversation with a family member, with a friend, you can go out and pull those down probably about a week after we do this webinar. Now, we also make it available because we want you to share this with friends who are maybe not IRTA members and help them become members as a result of seeing the type of programming and support that IRTA provides for their retired educators and members of the association. You'll also see this QR code down here at the bottom. I want you to have your smartphone handy. We'll talk about how you can use that QR code to get more information on the subject we talk about today later on in our conversation, but grab a pen and paper today. We're going to give you several different things I want you to write down. I'll remind you to do that, but it'll help you as you go along, take notes and be able to remember some things that go along in here. Before we get started, I want to bring on, like I said, Nathan Mihelich, who is your Director of Membership and Marketing. Nathan, what's going on at IRTA today?
Well, good morning, John, and we got a lot going on, and this webinar series is something I think that we're very proud of. We're going to be showcasing just one of the many benefits we have over the one every month, and long-term care is something that even I myself am thinking about and concerned about. So I'm interested to hear about what you have to say also today. There are also a lot of great things in the works. We have a couple activities planned. One is a Cubs and Cardinals games for this May. And then if our members want to do some traveling abroad, we have a group cruise from Panama City, Panama, back to Fort Lauderdale in October. So those are just a couple of the things that we have going on in the activities realm. And then the legislative session is going on today here in Springfield, and on our lobbying side, that's something that we're watching very closely. We're talking to our legislators, and we're monitoring the bills that might be potentially hazardous to our IRTA members. So that's the main part of being part of the association. But benefits like this and the many group benefits that we offer through AMBA are some of the gravy on the cake, so to speak, when it comes to your IRTA membership. So, John, really happy to be here today and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thanks, Nathan. Now, if they want to sign up for those Cubs or Cardinals games or get on that cruise and everything, where do they find that out? Is it on the website? Where do they go?
Right, absolutely. All that information is on the IRTA website, irtaonline.org, or we always have someone available on the phone here at the state office. So if you just want to pick up the phone, if you're not really that savvy when it comes to looking at things, we'd be happy to just talk over all the details with you as well. So either go onto our website or call us here at the state office, and we'll be glad to provide any information you need on anything.
Super. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate that. And again, stay close to what IRTA says on the website, and their alerts, especially with legislative issues that are coming down the pike as the legislature gets going. So appreciate that. Thank you for all that you do for our retirees in Illinois. So again, thank you very much, Nathan. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I'm kind of Nathan's counterpart within Association Member Benefits Advisors. I am involved with membership engagement and helping the associations drive more members to help you become stronger. So when those legislative issues do come up, you've got a stronger voice. I live a little bit north of Houston with my wife, who's an educator, my daughter, who is student teaching right now, just started her student teaching about a month ago. And then I've spent the better part of my career in classrooms helping active educators understand what their retirement years are like. So I appreciate the opportunity to join you today. I'm joined also by two of my co-hosts who are leaders for AMBA in Illinois, Gary DeVito and Larry Newman. responsible for the state of Illinois and all of really central United States. And so they're going to be here monitoring that question and answer. And from time to time, if they've got something they want to share about a particular point about our subject today, they'll chime in and we can talk about that as we go forward. But Nathan mentioned there's a lot of different things that IRTA does for you. Not only are they looking out for your pension, your health benefits, and those things that the legislature, may be trying to fund or defund or change the way that they handle those things. They also keep you connected. They talked about those activities like the ball games and the cruises and the fun stuff like that with your local units and chapters all across the state. And then Nathan also mentioned there's other important benefits and exclusive discounts, things that come with your membership in IRTA. Part of a way of saying thank you for teaching our kids for all of your career, but also to make sure that those things that you left the schoolhouse that you get to keep with you. They can fill some of those gaps that aren't covered by your state benefits or by district benefits that you had. If you decide to leave Illinois, either you winter somewhere else or you're just traveling, these benefits are portable. And you can also extend them to your parents if your parents are still living, or to adult children who may have aged out of your benefits. And they can keep you financially healthy if you take care of your parents as well, on top of what you do today. But today we're going to talk about specifically about long-term care, this whole concept of what it is, how it works, who needs it, what covers it, what triggers it. We've already had some good questions that have come in today. So we're going to talk just about the whole concept about care. As we age, we know that we can't do as many things for ourselves, and there's going to be a pretty sizable number of us once we reach age 65 are going to need some sort of care in our life. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the need for long-term care protection, how it works. I'm going to give you an illustration of long-term care and the components and how they interact together, and then just talk about some of the costs nationally as well as specifically in parts of Illinois, and how you can make the most of your endorsed options that you have. Before we do that, I do want to launch a quick poll, and it'll help Larry and Gary and I understand who's on our call today. So I want to see how many of you have done some type of plan for the future. Whether if you've got a long-term care plan, yes, no, or you're not sure, it's anonymous. If you'll jump in there and let us know, that will help us understand when we have our conversation as we go through here. Because what we find is that a lot of teachers, they did make a plan. The school district did offer some sort of a long-term care plan at some point, and they may have bought that when they were younger, and now they find themselves in a different position than what they expected. And we'll talk about some of the options and where you find yourself now. So we'll open it up for just a few more seconds because we've got a really good participation rate here. So if you've got a chance to jump on in there, we'll close it off in about 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to share the results here. We're about 50-50 split, guys. We've got folks that have done a great job and have made some type of long-term care plan, and then about half haven't yet, and some not sure. And that's okay, because a lot of times we think, well, I've got health coverage through the state because of my retiree benefits, or I've got Medicare on top of that. I'm covered, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to address some of those myths and some of those realities and kind of show you how different plans work and what is and what isn't covered. But this is my why. This is why I feel so passionately about this subject and why I want to bring it to you today. This is my father and I. This was taken back in July of 2020. He had just turned 80. He was in a memory care facility in Austin, Texas. That was the last time that he remembered who I was. And he had grown up healthy all of his life, had been an active 3-sport star, ran track in college, played competitive basketball well into his 60s, but a series of small strokes led to his dementia. And he spent the last 2 years of his life in a nursing home facility as well as a memory care facility for the last few months of his life. He passed away in October later that year, but because of what my father did back when he was in his early 60s, we were blessed that he took care of this plan, his needs for long-term care. So everything that I talk about today, a lot of it comes from my personal experience of how his plan worked, but what it did for the family and how it protected the family, because really that's kind of what this is about. Long-term care is for us, but it's also for the family as well. Now, I want to give you a little bit of history, and this is why, because like I said, half of you already say you have a long-term care plan, and I applaud you for that. Back in the 90s, individuals started to see their parents or grandparents live longer and need care. So the insurance industry created this entire long-term care insurance industry. And we saw a pretty significant rise of group policies where you could buy long-term care through the school or through your spouse's place of employment, and individual policies up until around the 2000s, the early 2000s. Well, with advances in care and the exploding rate of Alzheimer's and dementia, companies started realizing they couldn't continue to operate the way they used to. So they would start to have high premiums, and they would start to really tighten up the underwriting guidelines and take rate increases to where now we see a less and less number of people taking out long-term care for a wide variety of reasons. And that causes a little bit of consternation, a little concern on behalf of individuals. There is some good news in this. The good news is that the advanced treatments and diagnosis, they're catching things, and life expectancy is going up, and there's a lot of care opportunities. Used to in the past, it was you stayed at home until mom could no longer take care of dad, and then dad had to go to a nursing home. There was no in between. There wasn't this assisted living facility or adult daycare, and there really wasn't much of a home health care environment as well. And so now you've got a lot more options, and we'll talk about that. But on the flip side, we are an aging population. And so therefore the need continues to go up and the cost goes up. Just the simple supply and demand goes up there. The cost of care is up. We now have smaller family pools. And I think about my grandparents. All of my grandparents, all four of them, were one of 7 to 12 kids. They grew up in rural Texas, farming communities, things like that. So they had lots of people that if somebody was sick, a mom or dad, there was more people to take care of them. We have smaller families now, some families with 1 or 2 kids, things like that. So it's less of a family care pool to take care of us there. Policy language started getting restrictive. Medicare made significant changes. And I'll show you a little bit about that because that can really, most insurance plans follow those Medicare changes, and that can really restrict the type of care you get. Those who have plans, and you may experience this, you may start to see increases in your premiums for your coverage and things you thought were level whenever you took out the policy. And then all of a sudden, on top of that, COVID-19 came in and changed dramatically how nursing home and long-term care was provided to seniors who needed it. And this happened with my father. He went in prior to COVID. COVID hits, the nursing home goes on lockdown. And what I found out was that many nursing home rehabilitation specialists, certain care physicians, doctors, nurses of the specialties, they rotate amongst several different nursing homes. Well, when COVID was at its peak, they couldn't move. They couldn't change nursing facilities. And so that caused a little bit of a challenge in staffing out there. So again, and then some of the restrictions on vaccinations and fundings and things like that really drove up some of the costs in nursing homes, but it also changed how care was provided because of what families did. So where some of you, especially the 50% of you on the call that already have a long-term care plan, you may find yourself now with a rate increases, with a series of periodic rate increases on pre-existing policies. Are the carriers coming back to you and say, we're going to offer reduced coverage for a level premium? Or you may have taken out a policy back when you were teaching and you said, hey, I can handle a 6-month or a 3-month waiting period before I start my coverage. And now you find out that that's going to cost you $27,000, $30,000. You may not get excited about that. So that's going to cause some further financial strain, or the coverage doesn't match what you need, those type of things, or you may not be able to get care where you want to. And this is one thing I'll point out as we talk about long-term care a little bit. Certain policies have restrictive language in where you can get your care. And so as we go through there, you may find yourself in that position. The good news is you do have some alternatives, and we're going to talk about that as we go through this today. No matter what happened, though, no matter historically what has happened in the past 2 decades, what's going on today with long-term care industry and the insurance situation did not change the fact that over 70% of us, once we reach age 65, are going to need some form of extended care in our lifetime. And what that means, it could be like my father, that once he had his last stroke, he needed to stay in the nursing home for the duration of his life. Or it could be 6 months as a result of a fall and breaking a hip or something like that. So extended care needed that will happen. Over 70% of us are going to need that once we reach age 65 and beyond. So how do you figure that? How do you address that need with the current realities, with what your long-term care plan may offer or what you were looking for? So let me give you some numbers, and this may help you whenever you're trying to decide how you take care of yourself or your loved ones going forward. Did a lot of research out here, looked at different government stats, things like that. 28 months is the average time that someone spends in an assisted living facility. Now, that's a facility that's kind of in between your home and a full-blown nursing home, but almost 60%, 6 out of 10 of people who start in an assisted living facility will end up being moved to a skilled nursing facility or a nursing home facility out there. The average stay in a nursing home is 2.2 years. That's about what my father was, about spot on. It's usually a little bit less for men, a little bit more for women, but Alzheimer's is making that average quite a bit different. The average stay for an Alzheimer's patient is 9 years. And I met several people in my father's first nursing home that had been there for 5, 6, 7 years. And because the body was fine, except the mind had the challenges out there. And the one stat that really jumped off the page to me, and I want you to write this down. I want you to write the number 100 down. 47% of nursing home residents stay less than 100 days in a nursing home. And I'll tell you why in a moment. That's not because they pass away. So it's real important that you understand what that 100 means there. So let's talk about long-term care. And I had a great email from Kathy right before this webinar took place that says, how do I know when long-term care can be used? Who decides what gets used? That kind of thing like that as well. So I'm going to illustrate long-term care in the form of a good hamburger that you build, okay? So for the 50% of you that have a long-term care plan, most of these components are going to be built inside that hamburger, but you get to customize your good hamburger there. But really what separates a hamburger from just a patty melt is the buns. And so your buns are your qualifications, meaning that if you have a plan, you have to have some qualifications. If you lose some of these things, then you can be triggered to receive your benefits. And there's 2 different ways that you can do that. You can lose 2 or more of your activities of daily living, like bathing, toileting, dressing, feeding yourself, transferring, those type of things, being able to get out of the bathtub into a chair, out of your bed into a wheelchair, something like that. Most policies you have to lose 2 or 3 of those activities of daily living. Usually a doctor certifies that you've lost those abilities and you're not going to get them back, or you're going to, they're going to be gone for quite a while. And then the insurance company has a care coordinator on their side that verifies that. So once you lose your activities of daily living, at least 2 of those, then you can trigger to receive your benefits. On the flip side, the other thing that could qualify you to receive your benefits is a cognitive impairment, such as dementia or Alzheimer's. And that was the case with my father. After he had one of his last strokes, he had surgery, cleared him up. He got back into a rehabilitative facility, got back on his feet, got back able to feed himself, all those type of things. But his dementia just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And so that cognitive impairment, and the diagnosis of that, could qualify you for receiving your benefits. So then once you're qualified for benefits, then you have a benefit amount. So this is really the meat of the hamburger. This benefit amount can be displayed 2 different ways. It can be a daily benefit amount, or it can be a pool of money, meaning that you have X number of thousands of dollars of coverage as long as it lasts. In this scenario, this daily benefit amount could be $100 a day, could be $250 a day. Whatever that number is, that's where you receive your benefits. And then you've got a length of coverage provision. So you may have a policy that says you're going to receive $250 a day worth of benefits for 3 years, or for 5 years, or for a lifetime. And in my father's case, that was his situation. He received a certain amount of money every day for as long as he was alive. Now, as I mentioned, some of you possibly with your group plans through the school, if you took those out, it may have had a pool of money benefit that said you have up to $350,000. And if that ran out within the first year, all right, your coverage is over with. So again, that length of coverage and that daily benefit amount, they kind of coordinate together in what you have and what type of coverage that you can use. The next thing you find in here is the elimination period. And the elimination period works just like the deductible on your homeowner's insurance policy, where if you have a tornado that rolls through or a hailstorm that rolls through Illinois, you're responsible for the first X% of your home repair before your insurance company comes in and covers it. The elimination period works the same way. Whenever you're diagnosed with a cognitive impairment, or you have to go to a nursing facility or receive care, whatever that is, that clock starts ticking. And your elimination period says you're responsible for the first 60 days, first 90 days. Some of them have 6-month elimination period that you're responsible out of your pocket before the insurance plan comes in. Well, as we're younger, those things don't seem to bother us as much. We think, no big deal. I'll save up enough money between now and then. You may find yourself that could cost quite a bit of money out of your pocket before the plan kicks in. We'll talk about some alternatives to that. Then you start getting into some other, I don't want to call them condiments, like a good hamburger, but you get to choose where your location of coverage is. Some plans are just restricted to nursing home care, meaning you have to be confined to a nursing home. Others will include assisted living facilities. Still others have home health care benefits. Some will say the home health care benefit has to be provided by a licensed vocational nurse or some kind of home health agency. Others say that it can be provided by a non-skilled nurse that just comes out and does some light housekeeping, some cooking, some transferring, things like that, maybe bathing, things that aren't necessarily medical in nature. Same with the non-skilled services. Some have plans that say you can qualify a family member and they can provide these services. And then you have inflation protection. And this is one that's really quite common in plans, but where we see people either they decide they don't want it because it may cost something or they don't understand it. One thing I want to point out for those of you who have a plan, if it has inflation protection on there, sometimes it's an automatic 3% compound inflation every year so that your benefit amount goes up. Others, they will send you a letter that says you have an opportunity to increase your benefit, but if you decline it 2 times, you no longer have that option to increase your benefit. So that's kind of the basic components of your long-term care policy. If it's confusing, I'll show you how you can get a review. With the 50% of you on the call that have a plan, I highly encourage you to review it because there may be some benefits inside there that you're not seeing. There may be some opportunities that you can take to improve your coverage or to take care of what's out there. Now, we've talked about the components of a long-term care plan, but what is extended care? What is long-term care? It is a wide array of types of care. It can be care in your home. It can be care in a long-term care facility or a nursing home. It can be care in an assisted living community. And where we see these, we're seeing a lot more of what they call continuing care facilities, where you come in and you rent your apartment and you have a full-blown kitchen, but you have access to activities there on the campus, meals in the dining hall, things like that. But as you need progressive care, they are able to bring you care, whether it is coming in and helping with medications, coming in and help transferring, things like that. So you've got more of that. Down in Texas, there is a whole community in Central Texas of retired educators. It's a retired teachers nursing facility, long-term care facility. You see some of these formed around church organizations, fraternal organizations, things like that. So you're seeing more of this out there. So extended care goes beyond just the traditional, what we think, nursing home care. And so there's a lot of options out there, but with those options, you need to make sure if you've got your mind set on one and you have a plan, you want to make sure that it covers that. Because when it comes down to it, we all pay somehow. We can either pull out of our personal assets or our personal savings. We can seek assistance from friends and family. I'm going to show you some startling numbers in here in just a moment about the number of people who need to require assistance from their friends. You can go into Medicaid, and I'll talk about Medicaid. I'll talk about why that's not such a great deal and how hard it is to qualify. And then really for teachers on a pension, how it's almost impossible to qualify for. Or you can have some form of extended care coverage, like half of you do on the call. And we'll talk about how that works together as we go through here. Again, you'll see this QR code throughout. If you open up your camera on your smartphone and hover over that QR code, you'll be able to get more information about how you can get a review of your plan or what's available to you through IRTA. We'll make this QR code available for you later on in the conversation. And when I was visiting my father early on in his facility right outside of Austin, I got to notice there were people that were younger than me, and I was 50 at the time whenever my father first went in the nursing home. There were people younger than me, and I'd ask some of the nurses, why are they here? and it would be from traumatic brain injuries, from falls or accidents. We don't know what the future holds. So even younger individuals have the need for type of care out there. But also as we age, we're able to do less than what we used to be able to do. And so we need help as we get older. So you never know when it's needed, but we know as we get older, as I showed you with the stats, we're going to need some of that help the older we get. And most people think, well, I've got health insurance and I've got a great plan through the state, whether it's funded or not, that's something that IRTA is fighting on your behalf. But Medicare and health insurance is not designed to cover long-term care services. They have some limited coverage for acute rehabilitation immediately after a surgery or after an accident. But from a long-term care perspective, there's really not coverage there for that. People think, well, Medicare and Medicaid's the same thing. I hear about people going on Medicaid, things of that nature. Totally different opportunities, totally different plans. We'll talk about that. And then people think, well, I'm too young to buy. I should wait until I'm in my 70s to buy this. The longer you wait, the more expensive it is. And it becomes a challenge. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Because as we age, we have more ailments and things like that. One of our biggest providers, Mutual of Omaha, and you're probably always familiar out there with Marlon Perkins and Jim out there chasing down ostriches and snakes and elephants and all that kind of stuff like that. Mutual of Omaha is our preferred provider for long-term care insurance. They give us stats every year that kind of help me with this webinar. And so they get a couple of years ago, they haven't given us the stats for last year. They came in and said, hey, here's the average age that people go on claim, 78 years old. Overwhelmingly, it's women more than men, usually because the woman will wear herself out taking care of her husband at home, and he passes away, and then she now has to go to a nursing facility because nobody else can take care of her in that regards. And the top 3 reasons for care: dementia, overwhelmingly number 1. Didn't surprise me because, again, I experienced it with my father. Heart disease, and then arthritis. Those are the 3 top reasons that people have to go on a long-term care claim. And it may not be, like I said, in a nursing home. It could be someone taking care of them at home as well. So just to kind of give you perspective, I kind of want to give you some numbers out there so that you can make a wise decision on if you need benefits, when you need the benefits, and how to best to go about it and approach it that way. And we talked about this just a little bit, but I want to drive it home more. Most people, you've worked all your career, you've taken care of our kids in the school, we appreciate that. You want to have a say in where your care is provided. No one wants to work and then have somebody say, we're going to determine how you live the final years of your life. It doesn't mean a nursing home necessarily. It could be at home. It could be in a community, like I mentioned to you, with friends and family, like-minded individuals, peers your age, things like that, or assisted living facility. There are a lot of different ways that you can be taken care of and that you can have peace of mind and control in how your years are taken care of. One of the solutions that gives you peace of mind and control is a long-term care plan, because it can supplement your out-of-pocket expenses that you may not have to worry about. It protects your assets. You can't just call the pension board and say, hey, I'm needing long-term care. Can you double my pension payout? So your pension is still going to come, but it protects that nest egg that you've saved up and that you may want to pass on. What we unfortunately find a lot of times is that all the nest egg is drained, taking care of the first spouse in the household to make sure they stay at home and are cared for. And then as the second spouse needs care, there's no more money left there, unfortunately. So a good long-term care plan can protect those assets. To me, most importantly, it keeps you connected to the things that matter the most. With my father, when he first started demonstrating signs of dementia, my stepmother still worked, and he was safe to be at home by himself during the day. At night, though, he would sometimes get up and he would wander off, or he would become an electrician, just magically thinking he could repair things. And he's not an electrician by any stretch of the imagination. So she was able to bring in someone that could just stay up with Dad at night so that he wouldn't harm himself. And that allowed her to maintain her job and still take care of my father at the same time until she no longer could take care of him. So again, it helped him stay connected to his home and a familiar surrounding as long as possible. Those stay-at-home benefits are so important. Some of the plans have stay-at-home benefits to help you with just the light cleaning, household meal prep, things like that, things like bathing and dressing, special equipment. If it's just an adjustable bed and maybe a wheelchair that keeps you at home instead of having to go to a facility, these plans can help you do that. Also, they can help you retrofit your home and make modifications, widening doors, putting ramps in, lowering kitchen appliances and cabinets and things like that. The long-term care plans that have the best opportunities for you or the best options, they allow you to do those things that keep you connected to your home. And that's the most important thing, to stay where you want to stay and not have to go somewhere that you don't want to go. Let's look at the cost though, because the cost has started to go up pretty dramatically. We're going to look at it nationally. Again, these are from Mutual of Omaha. And a home health aide is going to cost you about $27 an hour. We haven't gotten the new survey from last year yet. An assisted living facility where you have an apartment on your own is averaging about nationally about $4,800. It's a little bit different in Illinois, and I'll show you in a moment. Semi-private rooms are over $8,000 and private rooms are about $9,000. My father's semi-private room in a very good facility. It wasn't the Taj Mahal, but I love the people that worked with him. His semi-private room was roughly $6,000 a month, and this was about 3 years ago. But you can see the growth costs of that over the past 10 years. Let's drill down a little bit deeper into Illinois. Now, I kind of took a north, central, and south look, and maybe, kind of more urban, smaller community, and then a smaller rural community as well out there. And you see that home health aides are averaging anywhere from $4,500 to $5,700 a month. And that's for somebody to come out 40 hours a week and provide care out there. An assisted living facility, it runs across the board a little different. There's more opportunity in Chicago, so it doesn't cost as much. In Springfield, there's probably not as many assisted living facilities there, so it's a little bit more. Carbondale further in the south, less expensive that way. Then nursing home costs, not too different between Chicago and Springfield, a little less in the far more rural, based on semi-private and private rooms out there. I do know that we have some individuals who have moved into Wisconsin that are on the IRTA call today. I can tell you Wisconsin costs are astronomical. They're probably about $2,000 more a month for nursing home care up in Wisconsin. So again, depending on where you have your care or the type of care, one thing I have noticed in other states when I started comparing previous years to this year, that home health costs have gone up because more people pulled their family members out of nursing homes and brought them home. And so there's more demand on home health care providers, but also with gas prices going up, the cost to travel can make it more expensive that way. So again, if you want to check this out, write this down, write this website down, write genworth.com, GENWORTH.com. Genworth was the largest provider of long-term care insurance in a group setting, possibly through your school district. They're kind of exiting that market. They're trying to get off these policies. You may have had experience with that, but they have a great cost of care calculator down there on their website, on their homepage, genworth.com. You can go down and look at cost of care. You can plug in zip code, city, state, look wherever you want to. If you want to retire to Florida, you can type in where you want to go in Florida, and it will tell you what those costs are down there. So I highly encourage you to write down genworth.com, and you can go out and take a look at it for yourself where you live. We talked a little bit about Medicaid because some people think about Medicaid as where I want to go. We'll talk about how you pay for long-term care. And I showed you that 70% of us at some point are going to need long-term care in our life once we reach age 65. You can pull it down from your savings, but it's not always available when you want or need to use that money. You may have money tied up in a 403B that has lost 20-something% in the past year, and you don't want to take that money out of there because you've lost so much money there, or incur the tax penalties on that or the taxes on that. You may have most of your financial net worth that wrapped up in your house or family land, and you don't want to spend that money or try to sell an asset to pay for long-term care. And then when you do that, some of those liquidating those assets cause your taxes to go up, kick you into a higher bracket, maybe lose future earning potential, things like that. So how you pay for that, we can solve that in a different way, and I'll share with you. And so some people say, well, I'm just going to put mom on Medicaid, or I'm going to spend down all of my assets, hide it all, transfer it to the kids, and then I'm going to go on Medicaid. Medicaid is truly a last resort program for people with limited assets. As I mentioned, you have to spend down all your assets to qualify. Here's the challenge. For those of you in the state of Illinois with a pension, that pension usually keeps you well above the poverty level or the minimum income levels that qualify you for Medicaid. So that right there knocks you out. And then what happens after the fact, after you pass away, the state's going to come back and seek reimbursement from your estate. Even if you've spread it out to the kids, because they go back and look 5 to 10 years and find that you did that. Medicaid is truly not the route you want to go. And then I noticed in the first place that my father stayed in, there were 3 wings in his nursing home facility. 2 wings were for private payer, which means they had long-term care, they just paid out of their own pocket, that type of thing. They had all sorts of services, high patient to staff ratios, and lots of activities. Then there was a 3rd wing that was the Medicaid wing that didn't have near the facilities, near the patient to staffing ratio, things like that. I'm not saying their care was any better or worse. I just wouldn't want to put my father in that type of situation. I wanted to make sure that he was cared for in the manner in which he deserved, with dignity and taken care of that way. So really, Medicaid is truly a last resort option when it comes to long-term care. Now, we talked about this earlier. The cost of long-term care that I showed you goes well beyond the physical monetary costs. It impacts families, multi-generations of families. 73% of all long-term care is provided by an informal caregiver in a home with no compensation. So think about this. Larry and Nancy and Gary and I work with retired educators all across the country, all across Illinois. We have seen many educators who have had to retire early to take care of their mom. And that stunted not only their earning potential, but it also stunted their pensions. And unfortunately, this falls much more heavily on the females in the household. And you can see the numbers down there. It can cost women $300,000+ of, earning income, potential pension loss, things like that, because they're having to take off from their work, whether it be quit their job, take off, reduce their hours to take care of a loved one in a home. Puts a lot of stress on individuals. So it's not just the financial impact, it's the stress that goes beyond that. We've seen the impact of it on marriages. You have to move mom into a house. I know that would put a tension in my house if my mom moved in, that type of thing. So it goes beyond the financial aspects of it. You need to prepare for it and get the care in the manner that you want to. And I'll share with you what I did for my mom here in just a moment. There's a misconception about Medicare as well. People talk about Medicare, and I know you've got a good health care plan for retirees up there in Illinois as well that follows the Medicare guidelines. Medicare will pay for a small amount of long-term care, but only after you have a 3-day inpatient hospital stay. So I want you to write down 3 and inpatient beside that. That care must be provided in a skilled nursing facility, meaning that you've got somebody there rehabbing you, trying to get you back on your feet, being able to do all those activities of daily living, that type of thing. If that happens, after a 3-day hospital stay, go to a skilled nursing facility, Medicare pays 100% of the first 20 days, 100% taken care of. After that, there's a co-insurance clause that you have to pay unless you have a Medicare supplement or you're an Advantage plan. There's a co-insurance clause out there. After 100 days, every plan stops paying, and you're responsible at that point. Now, if you remember, I told you to write down 100 back early in the presentation. 47% of all nursing home stays end after 100 days. That's because of this very reason here, that after Medicare runs out or stops their provision in paying, regardless of the situation, the cost is too high and the person still needs care. And so they can't afford it. So they have to come out of a nursing home. So again, Medicare, I don't want to labor on the misconception that Medicare or really any private healthcare plan or state provided plan pays for long-term care. It's very limited, only after a 3-day inpatient hospital stay. And I stress that term inpatient hospital stay because more and more often Medicare and private plans are classifying procedures as observation status procedures, meaning that you go into the hospital after a fall, you have a hip replaced, an elbow replaced, something like that, but the procedure itself is classified as an observation or an outpatient procedure. You still may stay 3 days in the hospital, you still get the same kind of care in the hospital, but if it's an outpatient procedure and you're discharged, there are no rehabilitation provisions to cover any of that. And that falls on you then for any expenses to get back on your feet, that type of thing. So this is how Medicare and these private plans keep chipping away at our benefits, but you're left on the hook financially responsible for that. And then we get this question oftentimes. It says, hey, I'm in rehab, I'm getting better to the point where I'm not getting better. As soon as that nursing facility determines that you're no longer receiving skilled care, meaning you're not getting better. In the case of my father, there was a point to where his dementia took over so much that he could no longer feed himself, he could no longer transfer, toilet, anything like that. Medicare stops paying altogether. Doesn't matter if it's 21 days, 15 days, 98 days, doesn't matter. Medicare stops paying altogether, and you're responsible for your care at that point. So again, Medicare, even your state health plans, your retiree benefits, they stop paying once you are no longer getting skilled care and you're not getting any better going forward. But there are other options. So you talked about the hamburger. There are other options if you have a plan already, or if you don't have a plan, that cover those elimination periods, those periods that say, hey, I've got 6 months before I get coverage. Is there something that can shorten that or cover me during that time period? Yes, there are plans like that. There are benefit plans that can give you hundreds of dollars a week, up to $1,000 a week, $3,000-4,000 a month for a short period of time. That can help cover some of those costs as well. I did something similar to this with my mother just back last year. Got her a plan that basically provides in-home coverage for her for the first year for all 52 weeks. That way, if something does happen to her, my brother and I can put her financial affairs in order, take care of her, get her, that way we're not having to spend money and pull it out of different accounts that may cause her tax problems, things like that. So there are a lot of advantages and a lot of options out there. Location of coverage. If your plans are very restrictive and say you can't get cared for at home, you can only get cared for in a nursing home, there are plans that can cover that as well. And then, as I mentioned, non-skilled services. Some plans allow for non-skilled care, non-family care to come in. Some plans offer the opportunity for a family member to get certified and provide coverage that way as well. Then we get questions that say, all this is confusing. I want somebody to review these benefits, but do I have even more options out there? There are a few unique options that I want to share with you real quickly before we wrap it up here. Make sure we've got plenty of time left. We're just about running up on time. There are some life insurance provisions. If you have a life insurance plan that you've probably taken out in the last 20 years or so, I encourage you to review it. Have Nancy or Gary and their team review your life insurance plan, because some plans have a provision that accelerates part of your face amount to be used for long-term care situations. So to give you an example, you have a $200,000 life insurance policy. They will allow you to use up to 1/2 or up to a certain dollar amount to use for long-term care. So you can take $100,000 and use it for your long-term care. When you pass away, your death benefit is reduced by the amount that you used for long-term care. Really kind of a neat feature in a life insurance policy. The one restrictive thing I want you to point out is most of the time it is for confinement in a true nursing home. It's not for just taking care of you at home or an assisted living facility. So you want to have that reviewed. IRTA also endorses a tax deferred asset protection plan that has provisions inside of it that you can use your money towards long-term care without a penalty, or depending on how you get qualified, it could double out your payment. This is the route that I've chosen to go, because with my father's history of dementia, I don't qualify for long-term care. So I've chosen to take a portion of my nest egg that I've saved up, put it into this tax deferred asset protection plan. It grows tax-free. I don't have to worry about the stock market going down because I don't lose any money in it. I get gains if I want to. But if my wife or I have a long-term care need, I can pull out money without penalty. Or if I've already started to take payments off of the plan and I have a long-term care need, it will double my payments. So it's really a neat plan that's available to you out there. Both of those strategies could be available to you if you think it's too late for me to get long-term care, or I don't know if I'll ever use it, things like that. Again, we can review those for you. Some people will use their required minimum distributions that the government forces us to take out of 403Bs and IRAs and things like that. They'll use that money to pay for a qualified long-term care plan and save taxes both ways. You can use pre-tax money and not get the RMD effect on that. Some people, if they have a health savings account, if you've got a spouse or if you're still working somewhere that has a health savings account, you can use money in your health savings account to purchase a qualified long-term care plan, which will save you taxes on both sides and give you a benefit that way. And then we've also seen some other people that say, I don't know, but if I get cancer or heart attack or have a stroke, there's some plans that will give you just a lump sum of money that you can use for some of your recovery in there that maybe help stave off having to go to a nursing home or provide care for you if necessary. So there's some other options that are out there, some unique things there. Gary, before I move forward, I've been seeing some questions pop in and out here. Is there anything that would benefit the group, questions that have come in?
Yeah, I think there's a couple here, John, that are worth letting everybody know about. So one of the first questions that came from Jeff, are long-term care premiums tax deductible? And while it's answered in the chat there, the answer to it is that they can be. It depends on how they're structured. And we're certainly not tax professionals. You would definitely want to speak with your accountant or CPA. But again, depending on how they are structured and whether they not meet certain criteria, they can be tax deductible.
Right. Or they can't, or the you're talking about the premiums or you're talking about the benefit?
Well, the premiums.
Okay. Yep. Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're correct on that too. Most plans, when they do pay out, in other words, when you're on claim, that is going to be a tax-free event as well.
Absolutely.
Another question that was asked from Irma, is it too late for me to get long-term care insurance? And John, I think you addressed this just recently, and without incurring a large premium. And certainly a large premium can be a subjective number. But that said, there's a lot of good plans that are available out there that can be structured and tailored to meet your requirements. And part of that can make sure that, it's within your budget. And, to have some coverage is better than having no coverage at all. And certainly the younger you do it, the less expensive it is, just based on your age alone. But the other wild card can be a change in health that can really put a damper on getting the coverage that you would want.
Exactly. Great. Keep those questions coming in here. We're going to move ahead a little bit and come back and get Gary to answer a few more questions that have popped in here. Just want to remind you, you have a phenomenal benefit as part of your IRTA membership. It's called the Passport Program. If you haven't signed up for that yet, we can send out a link to you to get signed up for that. Valentine's Day is coming. If you're looking at sending flowers, or you want to, nudge your significant other to send you flowers, or you want to send cookies to the grandkids, you can do that out there, save a good amount of money, make your money stretch further. Tax time's out there. You can save money on TurboTax. There are lots of different new vendors out there, merchants. GNC is one of them who's trying to get healthy, stay healthy. And now there are so many cruises on sale. If you're looking, and Nathan talked about the cruise in October, if you're looking to do travel, now is the time to get out there. So many cruise lines are coming up with new capacity, new ships. They're trying to fill them. Make sure you jump in. They're offering discounts, upgrades, free stuff on board, stuff like that. All of this is part of your Passport program. Go to myambadiscounts.com, get signed up there. If you need help with that, I'll show you here in a moment how to get a QR code to help you out with that. Just a quick reminder, we are going to talk about that Passport program in depth. We're going to do a live demonstration, walk you through how it works, all the benefits, all the new vendors, everything out there on 3/1, just in time for hopefully a fall, spring break trips that you're planning out there. In April, we're going to talk about the dental vision plans. We're having a pre-retirement seminar on the 6th, on a Saturday. So if you know of active educators that you're friends with, tell them about this. It's a great way to learn what to expect when they retire. And then on the 14th of June, we're going to talk about the 5 major threats to your nest egg and what you can do to protect that. So continue to sign up for these. We have a great turnout. We appreciate that. So tell people about this webinar series. This is a great way to introduce them to IRTA if they're not familiar and become a member, or if they're a member, let them know about this programming. Nathan shared with you some of the activities coming up, some of the legislative tips. We talk about these benefits that you have, learn about different topics and subjects. I know most educators are lifelong learners. Let them know about this series and how it can benefit you. So I'm going to leave this open for questions. I want you to grab your smartphone. Everybody grab your smartphone if you've got it beside you. Open up your camera feature and hover over this QR code. Hover over the QR code and a little box will pop up. You can hit your finger on it and it will ask you, what information are you looking for? If you want to find out about long-term care, simply hit long-term care, complete your information, and it'll send it in. If you want to find out about all of your benefits, some of the things we talked about today, benefit review, especially for those of you who have a long-term care plan. Please, 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 and I know Gary's done this whenever with some other counterparts in other states, he's reviewed those plans and said, hey, here's your potential cost. Here's what you can do. With so many changes to existing plans out there, you may have some options that you're thinking, I just want to cancel this. Gary can tell you, don't cancel this. You've got this, this, and this coverage. Or if you do, you have this coverage. You have some options out there. Have Gary and Nancy and Larry review those coverages. Make sure you've got peace of mind in what you have. Make sure you're spending the most effectively towards your long-term care needs. So use that QR code to start that conversation. If you're on your smartphone, you're on your tablet, and you can't use the QR code, simply email me, johnjon.green, johnjon.green at amba.info, and I will be glad to connect you with Gary or to Nancy and their team to make sure they answer that question for you. So, Gary, anything else come through that we need to answer the questions that have popped in?
Oh, actually, no other questions at this point.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one last question. Like I said, again, use the QR code, hit the Q&A up if you want to. When someone expresses interest in reviewing their long-term care coverage, what do you usually do, Gary, when you go through that process?
Sure, that's a great question. Typically what we do is we look at all the components that actually you just went through, the elimination period, which is that time deductible. Take a look at the daily benefit, how many years or how many days, how many covered days of benefit are there? What's the total lifetime benefit that would be included for that plan? What's the premium? Most of the time that we're reviewing a plan like this, it's because the retired teachers come to us because they've had a price increase. And we've spoken with folks that have had these plans in place for many, many, many years, and they've gotten plans that aren't part of the IRTA. We're still happy to review those. And I really can't tell a time. In fact, I'm 100% sure I've never told anybody to cancel a policy, because they can be restructured in such a way where you change the benefits a little bit, it reduces the premium and keeps it within a reasonable budgetable range. These plans are important to have in place, and you definitely need to keep them. But we look at all the components and also look at other factors like family lineage, ages, health, that type of thing.
Exactly. And you can do this on the phone, Zoom, in person.
Exactly. All of the above.
Okay. Super. Outstanding. Thank you very much. IRTA members, thank you for joining us today. Gary and Larry, thank you for joining us as well. We appreciate your opportunity to serve you. I'm going to leave this up a little bit longer. I'm going to stop recording. And that way, if you've got questions, feel free to